Hi, welcome to Room to Grieve podcast. We're your hosts, Karen and Bec. Grab yourself a cuppa, find a comfortable spot, and we'll journey through grief together. Hi, welcome back to part 2 of our chat with Natalie Ridler as she continues to tell us all about her amazing little boy Morgan, who passed away just before his 4th birthday last year, around the same time that Karen and I lost Bradley and Emily. Part 1 was an amazing episode, very moving, deeply touching, but Natalie shared with us some great insights and just really explained everything so much better than Karen and I ever do. We have loved this whole chat with Natalie, so much so that we didn't want to edit anything out, so we had part 1 last week. So let's just get on as Natalie continues to tell us all about Morgan, about his charity, and we continue to chat about our journeys with grief. You do amazing work with Morgan's Army. That's a charity that you set up, isn't it, in honour of Morgan? And I think you touched on it earlier that you give out your bereavement boxes to newly bereaved parents, and I've seen you do them on your TikToks and stuff, and I love how personalised, like how much effort you personally put into those things. Like you genuinely learn all about the families and about the person that they've lost, and you include so much personal, really intricate, meaningful things in there. It's not, you don't just have, shells with a generic stack and everybody gets the same thing, do they? You really personalise them to everybody.
As you can see, there's a lot of mess in this room.
No, but
this is
I
my
love
office.
That.
I just thought you was a bit scruffy, to be honest, like Bec.
Well, this is Morgan's bedroom.
Right. Oh, what a great way to use it.
Exactly. We're actually having an office built in the back garden, but I felt like the most perfect thing I could do was kind of grow his legacy through the room that he.
I'm in Bradley's room and I do
in.
the same thing.
It's a way of being close to them, isn't it? And like with the bereavement boxes, they were actually inspired by Morgan's school, because when Morgan passed away, we had a knock on the door from Morgan's school teachers, and all the staff at the school had clubbed together and created us these huge hampers. So one was for Rhiannon, which had loads of colouring books and pencils and toys and things, but they were all stuff that they knew she'd love because they'd come to know her through Morgan. But they bought us this box, and it was 2 boxes actually. One was filled with like essentials from M&S, so like proper nice food, ready meals, pasta, sauces, coffee, wine for me. And I remember just thinking that these people have actually gone out of their way to do something helpful and meaningful. And the second box they got me has lots of it was sunflowers in there, which is the flower that's become synonymous with Morgan in this area. And in the gardens at the hospice was lavender everywhere. And when I got home from the hospice, obviously everyone knew we were coming home from hospice because it was on my TikTok of us leaving the hospice. And my whole front garden was just lined with pots of lavender because people had just come and dropped them off all day. And as I was just sat there thinking in my head, it doesn't actually take that much to be personal, I don't feel. And I know that little bits and bobs that remind you of the person that they were and that you can keep in your house. And my house is full of like odd bits and bobs that people have given me that said, this made me think of Morgan. That's why I got it for you. And that's amazing because that's just naturally organic love grown in somebody else that's being handed to me. And you can feel that. It's not just, a token. It is truly personal. And that's kind of what I wanted the boxes to be. And it's only a small arm of what we do because they're not for everyone. Not everyone wants those sorts of reminders. And that's why, they can apply for them up to 5 years after loss. Because I'm saying, there might come a time in 4 years when you are ready for something like that. And actually, you benefit from something like that, of being thought about and being given permission to remember your child. But lots of what we do is kind of supporting parents and families in the later stages of treatment. because there's so much at the beginning when they get diagnosed with cancer. There was just stuff being chucked at us left, right, and centre, which was amazing at the time. But then coming into like the second year of treatment, it just felt like everything was slowing down. Our lives were still incredibly hard, but that support was falling away, because it was almost like, well, you've been doing it a long time now. I wanted to make sure that there was an organisation that was there for them in those later stages when things maybe were a bit tougher because it wasn't so new and there wasn't so much support. Because I tend to find that your family still support you and all that, but the support might fall away, your friends, because they've all got their own lives to continue on with. And it's not that, it's anyone's fault, because everyone has to live their own life, but it can feel incredibly lonely. And that's kind of where Morgan's Army comes in. We're able to say that we're there for you in the later stages and also afterwards. So we're developing bereavement services so that we can be there. For a lot of parents with children with cancer don't often have time to go to hospices where they get the support, the specialist support that they need. We were very fortunate that we had the opportunity to choose THAVAN, who will now support us for life, and they'll support Rhiannon for life.
Really
with
good.
bereavement services, and it is really good. But so many families, cancer families in this, they just don't choose hospice because they're either afraid of the word hospice, because it can be quite intimidating. And I know so many people think, in their head, no, they can't go to a hospice. But in my head, I couldn't face Morgan passing away at home, because this is the home we need to come in and out of for the rest of life. And Rhiannon needs to live here, and it's our home, and it needs to be our safe space as a family. And I couldn't have that memory here. And I was also terrified of it happening in hospital, because I've been a parent on the ward in the hospital while a child has passed away. And it's horrific for those other parents on the ward as well. Obviously, it's the most horrific for the people going through it. But I remember the lights going down, the doors being shut, and just being told not to come out until we're told. And I just remember looking at Morgan. I remember my heart rate going up, and I remember staring at Morgan in the bed going, please, that could very well be any of those other children on the ward, and you're faced with the reality of staring at your child in a hospital bed while you know what's just happened outside. And that was one of my main reasons for choosing a hospice, is because I wanted kind of like the space and the peace to give him the beautiful death that I wanted him to have, and keep that element of it away from the parents who still had so much fighting and needed that hope at the time. And it was a really difficult decision to make, but I hope that through sharing our journey that I've kind of dispelled a lot of the myths around children's hospices, and especially THAVAN it's the only one in South Wales. So if you choose a hospice, you go to THAVAN. Morgan was able to have such a lovely and supported death, and as a family we were so well supported. I really want that for other families, and so I hope that sharing my experience through that, and that's kind of another arm of what Morgan's Army does, is through supporting with peer support. We hold events for parents to get together in different stages, whether they're bereaved. We also hold grandparents events and dads events, so that people can get together and chat about their experiences and what helps them, especially parents who are currently in treatment. You need that support network of people that you can be absolutely authentic with, and that's really hard to get now, especially like in the post-COVID world. Might have happened of that before 2020, but when Morgan was first diagnosed, there were still restrictions in the hospital, so we weren't allowed to leave the rooms. And it wasn't until much later on in Morgan's journey, when we were allowed to mix, like he was allowed to go in the playroom with the other children and things again, that I really realised the value of having that support with. You got the support from your family, but support from other parents who were in that same situation as you, were at the coalface all the time. And I still have such deep friendships with those people, and I can't really do without them now. And I kind of hope to facilitate more of those kind of support networks, because if we're talking about advocacy and having that friend that you can turn to when it's so emotionally exhausting, then we're going to learn that through supporting each other and sharing our experiences with each other, and being able to bounce our ideas off other people who are in the same situations as us, which isn't as easy when you're talking to a friend at home, potentially, where you've got to explain what every single medical term means. And, they'll say, what does that mean then? And what about that? Whereas when you're speaking to another cancer parent, they're all like, oh, yeah, bloody cisplatin. And it's it's that kind of, you need those kind of people to interact with, don't you?
Yeah. For the rest of your life, really. Now that's
definitely. Like my bereaved friends, it's a club that you shouldn't ever have to be in, but they're the best friends you could possibly hope to meet in that situation. And it's weird to say that I wish I'd never met them.
Yeah,
but now I can't live without them. I wish I'd never met you, but that's how important those relationships become. But you what brings you together is, like I said, the absolute worst thing that could have ever happened to anyone.
Yeah,
at least you'll find someone else who has been through something just as horrible as you.
It just makes it. Do you not think it just makes the journey that little bit easier?
It does really feel like a lighter load, and that's why I know that peer support has been like a lifeline to me. Especially in times like myself and my husband grieve in very different ways.
Yeah.
And he needs space to grieve how he wants to grieve, and I need space to grieve. But sometimes when it's at a juxtaposition, it's like we need to do different things. And that's fine, that's healthy, but it feels jarring, and it feels like you're separating from each other and that you're drifting apart.
Do you find
at a time you should come together?
Do you find that really... Sometimes I find that really hopeless feeling of, God, I didn't save Bradley, I couldn't save him, and now I'm watching, my kids and my husband suffer just the same, but, it just within their grief, and I can't help them either. And it's such a helpless feeling, isn't it?
It is horrible.
Because we've said it a few times tonight, but grief is so lonely and so isolating. But similarly, it's not something you can share.
No, but I have had to go into work with my husband for the last couple of days, and probably for the rest of this week, because he's struggling that bad. I've had to go into
They
work.
have their own company, by the way. She doesn't turn up to some random organisation.
Not hold his hand as he's working.
She doesn't take him
take your wife to work day.
And I've been cleaning the offices today, just so I'm there.
I think it's sometimes like I learn a lot all the time, because you learn by trial and error, don't you? Sometimes you say the wrong thing, or you might do the wrong thing when your intentions are good, and as it doesn't really matter whether your intentions are good or not. What matters is the impact it has on the other person, isn't it? And how you take ownership of that and what you do with that.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest thing for us is creating space for each other's grief, and allowing us, all right, I recognise that I go to the gym at 6 a.m. every morning, because that is when I feel at my worst.
Right.
Is when I wake up in the morning and I think I've got to do this whole other day without Morgan again, and it can feel a bit Groundhog Day. But I go to the gym or I go for a run at 6 a.m. and that squashes that feeling down a little bit. Doesn't distract from it, but it helps me sit there and go, right, okay, I've sweated it out, I've done this, now I'm ready to face the day. And so that's the space that Matt allows me. He stays in the house with Rianne on in the morning and gets her ready and takes her to nursery, and Matt goes to football in the evenings. And we both know we feel better when we're eating healthy, nutritious meals, and so we make sure that we're having those things. And sometimes Matt will turn around to me and go, should we have a takeaway tonight? And I'll say no, because we'll feel rubbish after it. We need to let's cook something.
The impact that shitty food and alcohol and drink has on your grief is mind-blowing for me. I just didn't expect food and drink to have such an impact on my feelings, but it really does.
It's the next day, isn't it? It's the next day. And Matt always says, we had quite a heavy weekend last weekend because we had, I had a wedding on the Friday night and then we had a big wedding on the Saturday. And, we did go and we did enjoy ourselves on the day, but it's the day after, isn't it? And it's finding that balance. There was a long period of time where I was having a drink most nights. A nice glass of wine and things, but I felt like I got to the point where I was sitting there going, not necessarily that I needed it, but I felt like I couldn't relax without it. And that the time would kind of pass too slowly without it. And so, I've made a pact with myself, that I'm not going to drink in the week. I'm going to focus on exercise and healthy eating and drinking more water and things. And it's taken me probably until now to recognize that in myself. But, because you can sit and you can feel guilty about, maybe I've done this wrong and I've not looked after myself. But that's what I needed to do at that time.
Yeah.
And you have to go through that process and you have to come to that realization, because the only person that can make changes in your life is you. But you need to be at the stage where you're ready to make them. And I'm sure that I'll still have, especially at the weekends, if my friends are out having a glass of wine, I think, oh, you know what, a nice glass of wine, go out on the weekends. But then you recognize that you're probably going to feel a bit low on the Sunday, because that's the impact that alcohol has on you. And you need to make a commitment, to get out in the fresh air and to do something about it and find the balance for your life and try not to let yourself get too bogged down. It's like I say about all these little circles I'm finding for myself. Sometimes going and having a glass of wine and a natter with my mum in the house is what I need on that day. And then the next day what I need is something else, and it's finding what fills your cup, what empties it, and how can I kind of keep it teetering around halfway.
Yeah, but it's that whole thing is you have to take the ownership yourself, isn't it, and do it yourself.
It's hard. The only person that knows when to make changes is you, and that's why it can be really hard when you're feeling so low, and alone. And no one can really tell you what to do. And I think that's the thing that I find hard, is in most situations there's an answer to things.
Yeah.
With grief, the only answer is to let it in and to live with it and to sit with it and to listen to it.
Yeah.
And to lean into it and say, what does grief want me to do right now? Just, as they keep saying, you've got to carry it with you. Whether that's you dragging it around, let it drag you around kicking and screaming. Some days that's what you need to do. But other days, you can carry it. You just got to let it in, because it's just love.
Bec, I am going to go back to what Natalie's just said. I know you think that I'd missed it, but did you hear the word balance?
Karen has this thing at me every day. She says to me, I need more balance in my life. I told her I don't want to hear that word anymore. I'm sick of her throwing balance at me. I need to balance stuff more.
I think it's incredibly hard to balance. It is. And you're always going to get stuff knocked off, because it doesn't take much to upset it, especially when you're grieving. Like you say, like you driving down past the school and seeing a school, and then you could suddenly be like your perfectly balanced scales for that day that you've kept lovely and teetering up. Like if I use kind of like Monday as an example, I could not sleep Monday. And I was just like, oh, this is all out of whack. Tomorrow's going to be horrible at work. And when I'm tired at work, my anxiety's bad. When my anxiety's bad at work, I struggle to concentrate and I end up having to escape to the toilet multiple times just to bring myself back down to a level that I can go back out and do my job without crying everywhere. And I was like, right, how can I restore the balance? What can I do? And then I'm impulse booking a gym class at 6 a.m. and I don't usually go to on a Monday. I'm thinking, right, and I'm going to go to that. And I turn up to this gym class going, this is the worst idea ever. And then your balance is completely the other way. So you're sitting there going, I didn't go to sleep until after midnight. And then, I find it's just incredibly hard to get it right. It's the balancing act that grief throws your life into, really. And it was the same when Morgan was in treatment. It was really hard to find the balance. The burnout was real.
Yeah.
You were doing everything, all their appointments. You were running around managing the house, managing your other children, managing...
I think we just did it, though. I don't think we realised. I think we only realised after how difficult that balance was when we had grief thrown in as well, because prior to that, we just did it.
Burnout is so difficult to recover from. And, I don't think it can be recovered from in a day or a year. I don't think it's the sort of thing you can have a nice long soak in the bath about. I think that level of emotional burnout can damage your life for years, I think, because you learn, one of the things we learn in our situation was to put our needs last. And you kind of do that as parents anyway to a degree, but when you've got a child with cancer, like everything has to come last because there's no time for anything else. And the second you try and make time for something else, I remember thinking, right, I'm going to go and have a shower now, Morgan's sleeping. And the next thing you know, he's sat up and vomiting all his feed everywhere. Balance is nigh on impossible, I think, in normal life. Because I think even people who haven't been through immense trauma struggle with balance, but people that have complex medical trauma, such as parents like us, the complex PTSD that comes from the cancer journey, and even if your child survives, is quite severe actually, and isn't very well managed. I do feel there's an awful lot of survivor's guilt out there, amongst cancer parents, especially. I've got such close friends, and they're so wonderful, and I'm so grateful that their children made it. Yeah. And I would often think, whilst it is still unfair, and I will occasionally think, well, why not mine as well? Why did I have to be the one that lost one? But I would never wish this on anyone. And equally, I know that they have similar feelings to me, where they're saying, I don't know why mine was one that survived, but I'm so worried the rug's going to get pulled from underneath me at any point. And I guess the issue for them is that the worst thing that could have happened to them at that time was their child getting cancer, and that's still a reality for them. Whereas I think that being bereaved and being grieving for me offers me an element of protection because it's happened already.
I get that. No,
but not, I'm not saying I don't live with fear and anxiety. I worry about Rhiannon and things happening to her, and I worry about things happening to my husband or anyone. I do have this kind of worry that something bad is always around the corner.
Yeah.
That I didn't have before cancer kind of impacted my life in the way it did.
Yeah. Because you know that it can be a reality now, don't you?
It's never you until it is you. And then suddenly you're sitting there thinking, there was nothing that was telling me that it wasn't going to be me. So where did that kind of absolute belief that this sort of thing never happens to people like me? I don't even know what I mean when I say people like me. Who's me? Who's people like me? Who am I?
Yeah.
But you don't think it's ever going to happen to you. And then it did. And now what?
And it still seems totally surreal.
It's still, I can't believe that we went through all that we went through and that I'm still standing at the other end of it. I can't believe it. And I think when you tell the story to other people, it's no surprise really that they do turn around and go, wow, you're inspiring, you're so strong, because I would have thought the same of anyone that if I'd heard my story. But it just happened to me. I was just a passenger there. And that's kind of still how it feels a little bit, that I'm just a passenger in life trying to take control of it, and again trying to create balance, but there's something always threatening to topple it over.
Do you find your grief shows up physically for you?
Yeah.
Mine's in my shoulders and my neck.
I come out in eczema at random points that never started. I never suffered with it until Morgan was on palliative care, and all of a sudden came out around my eyes and my face and all over my hands. And ever since then, when there's been particular heavily grief periods, and not often when I think it's going to be, I thought it would maybe be the anniversary of his passing, but that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, really. His birthday I struggled with a lot more, because there was that lot, you sat there on the day and you're thinking, I should be wrapping presents and he should be unwrapping presents. And, we still did a cake and things, and Rhiannon blew a candle out for him. You know, that's times where you sit there and you miss things, and that's when kind of like my physical symptoms will come up. I'll wake up the next day and suddenly like my eyes are just like covered in eczema, and I don't know how or why. And the weird thing about it is that nothing helps it. Time is the only thing that makes it go away. I have put cream upon cream upon cream upon cream on it, and nothing makes a difference. But time does. And I feel like that's my body trying to tell me that you've just got to give it time. And, you know, you can't go around it. You've got to go through it. And that was one thing I used to say to Matt all the time when Morgan was in treatment. And he'd ask questions like, you know, why us, why this? And I said, we can't get around it, Matthew. We can only go through it. And we've just got to hold on and fly by the seat of our pants and hope and hope for the best, literally.
Yeah. And we've still got to carry on doing that.
Hope becomes such a loaded word.
Yeah, it's just, you know, and I find some people say, you know, I don't know what I would do. I couldn't survive if I lost a child. And I get so many comments like that. And I know that they're just trying to, you know, show compassion in the only way they know how, and trying to imagine, you know, it must be horrible to try and put yourself in that situation. What a horrible thing to try and imagine, you know?
So then you think, well, I am surviving.
Yeah.
So does that mean I didn't love my child as much as you love yours?
Yeah, but I think that's where hope becomes something different. Hope becomes less of a, I hope my child survives cancer, and then a little bit of, I hope that they're okay up there. And I was saying, like, I hope now that I can live a full enough life, because I need to now for them, because that's what they would have wanted, because someone that truly, truly loves you would never want you to suffer. And so that suffering I need to kind of rephrase in my head. And I do sometimes sit there and go, and this suffering is just absolute proof of how deeply I loved that boy. And I never want it to go away, because the day that I'm not suffering is the day that love is, I suppose, not there. And I don't, you know, that day will never come, will it? So that's all that suffering is, really. And that's all that grief is a really great love. And so we've got to let it in, because it is just the love we have for them. And we will always love them until we die and we see them again. So I think it's really important to me to realise and to recognise that suffering isn't just pointless, cruel suffering. It is just love. And so in those moments where I do really suffer, I try and think of funny things that he did, or I've got so many videos on my phone. I really am quite lucky. I frequently tell people now, like, don't let people make you feel bad for being a parent that takes lots of photos, or being a parent that takes lots of videos. Not that, you know, the lesson shouldn't be that, you know, one day that's going to be all that you have, because that's such a fatalistic view of everything. But that all these memories are precious, and we deserve to capture them if that's what we want to do. I do think that in many ways we've grown in grief, but we still got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
A lot of work to do in society, where, you know, everything's kind of like focused on productivity and kind of like our contributions to society and how much we're putting in, how much tax we're paying, and what we do and how educated we are. And actually we just need to focus somehow on getting back to that human element.
Yeah.
And what makes humans so wonderfully beautiful, that they're worth all this grief if we lose them, you know. And I think that's what children and young people remind us when lives are tragically cut short. It's just great love. And that's ultimately what it all boils down to. We don't take anything with us, do we?
No.
Just the people that love us and remember us, and that we hope that we'll see them all again.
We will. We have to.
We better add.
I know we will.
We better
I don't
add.
feel like he's gone. And I think that's the weirdest thing to try and describe to people. It wasn't this moment when he passed away and he stopped breathing where it felt like he was gone. I just can't physically hold him anymore, but I do feel him around places, because I think they're always a part of you.
Yeah.
Because like they say, as a mother, I think, you always carry part of their DNA with you from pregnancy, and I feel like I feel that in me. So I feel longing. I tried to describe it to someone the other day. It feels like a very small part of me is attached to something far away, and I long for it because I can't reach it, but I feel it's there. I just can't get to it. It's like that really deep yearning or longing for something you can't physically see anymore, but you can still
we
still
say
feel
that a lot,
them.
don't we, to each other? That yearning
is difficult.
It's intense.
Yeah. When it hits, it's painful.
Like, it's just heavy and it's there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where you just kind of like, how do you deal with that, and how do you process that? And like you say, there isn't an answer to it. That's the bit that's always going to be there until you're sort of connected to them again. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't bury Morgan. I've kept him at home with me.
We've done the same.
I didn't want him to be on his own anywhere. I felt really awful that he would be sort of buried in the ground. It feels cold. It feels distant. Whereas he's just on my shelf downstairs, and every now and again I can give in.
Yeah. Everybody's different, aren't they? Some people want somewhere to go to talk to them, and
I think because Matt said that a lot about having somewhere to go to talk to him, but that's where we're lucky with T Havan, because that's where he passed away, and we go there all the time and sit in the garden, and he's got a little memorial stone there. They all get the stone, and they actually do this incredible thing at T Havan where every child that passes away, they turn their name into Morse code and then transcribe it into bird song.
Oh, wow.
And so in the garden, there's a loop that plays of all their names in bird song. And they send you that piece of bird song.
Oh, how lovely.
It's amazing.
So when you sit in that garden, it's just their names, but they sound like, because they are real bird noises, but you could just be sitting there, but that's just the names being told to the heavens all the time
that's so right.
In an endless loop. And it's really, to me, I find it really comforting, because it's that kind of, again, that even years after I'm gone, Morgan's name will still be being sung by a bird somewhere, and obviously with the charity, because it's named after him, I hope that his name will be synonymous with support and things like that for years to come. And I have opted to saying that when I go, he can come with me then. And until then, he's going to have to wait on the shelf. They often, but the nice thing is when people come in, they talk to him, they say hello to him. And at Christmas, I can put a little Christmas decoration.
I've still got a robin on him. She's still got the robin there.
Someone made me, and there is next door to Morgan as well. It's a little tea light holder, and it's just, so it's so comforting to have him there. But also at the same time, sometimes it can be a bit confronting. I think that their whole life is kind of reduced down to one little box.
Yeah.
And it's something, it's, as I often say with Morgan, because he's such like a larger than life character, so I just don't see how they could fit him all in that box.
No.
It just seems so small.
Yeah.
But we've got pictures of him on, we had the box designed with pictures of him on, so I kind of, it's comforting to have him there, because I don't want him anywhere else.
Yeah, I find it very comforting.
He is just at the same time sat in the middle of my living room, and so it's just a bit odd to describe to people, I think.
I mean, when Bradley died, I didn't want him at the funeral home on his own, so my nan's ashes were there with him. And then when they brought Bradley home, they brought my nan back too, because I didn't want Bradley there on his own.
I say my nan passed away 2 weeks before Morgan did, and he actually passed away on the day of her funeral. So I didn't go to my nan's funeral. I'm sure she forgave me. But we often say that because she passed away from cancer as well, and kind of in those final days, she used to talk a lot about making sure she was there first for Morgan. And so I knew that with things when he passed away, his hands kind of went out like that.
Oh.
And he smiled. I kind of feel like hopefully
she was there.
Yeah. And all the other people that loved him, who never got to meet him, family members. I like to think that everyone that's ever loved me would receive him with open arms,
Oh, that's so lovely.
It's lovely. Good old Big Nanny. He adored her.
Oh.
And they were quite close, so it felt like the right thing. And I know that she would have been, as weird as it sounds, she would have been so pleased that she went first.
Yeah, to be there for him, ready.
And it was very comforting to know that someone that loved him so much was there to see him in.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Bradley was waiting for Emily. He promised to wait for Emily.
I did he?
Yeah.
That's so lovely, isn't it?
Because he knew he was going to die, but Emily didn't. And he said he promised his mum, and we've been told they're together. We have signs all the time. I speak to Emily every night with a pendulum, and she's always with Brad.
Weird things. I see so many weird things about the people that I've met since, that I know that we often talk about how if it wasn't for our children passing away, we're not people that would have ever have...
Just the connection. Yeah.
And we never would have, probably been friends in a normal world. We would have moved in different circles and been different people, And it's so odd that there's so many signs that they are together, and you do see them all the time, and like it's too much.
Too much. You have cats, don't you, constantly?
Yeah.
Because Emily likes sending the cats just to wind her up. And there's many things that happen that it cannot be true.
I say we had Morgan's laugh put in the bears. We went to Build-A-Bear.
You've got that.
We've got that. 4 days after he died, we took Rhiannon. We went down to Build-A-Bear, and we had his laugh put in 10 bears for the people, for our family members, and we took one to his school. And the bears frequently go off just on their own in the houses, and it's of him laughing, and he has such a wicked laugh. And but when this laugh goes off in the middle of the night, you just kind of hear Morgan's like, "What's that?" And I know his teachers in schools say that quite often they'll all be sat around and a paintbrush will fly across the room.
Oh, wow.
Because that's what Morgan used to do, is throw things. There's just two things. There's throwing things and finding it funny, and forcing Roberts to eat half-eaten jammy Dodgers, and telling her she had to. And that's her abiding memory. She was the amount of times that she said, "I ate food for that boy that he had already been in his mouth," and I was sitting there going, "Oh no!" But I did it for Morgan.
Down.
And so now she says she has flashbacks every time she sees a jammy Dodger. And so I'm definitely going to send one in Rhiannon's bag for a snack time.
Yeah.
For a Thursday.
You have a bite of it.
Oh yeah, I might send it in half eaten. I might train her to feed Roberts a soggy jammy Dodger. We'll see what she says. She doesn't usually share her biscuits.
Oh, I really appreciate today though.
It's been really lovely. Thank you guys.
Yeah, no, it really
nice.
has. It's just so nice to talk to somebody who gets it, isn't it? But Morgan sounds absolutely amazing. And I love following, his journey and all about him and just seeing him. He was just very infectious.
He was, yeah. And I think he just had so much joy in life. And but it's often those type of children, like all the children I've met on the ward, they're always such wonderful characters that you've just got to sit there and think sometimes that life is really unfair. When they say that they take the best, they really weren't lying, and it's not fair, and I'll never understand it, for the rest of my life, why all these wonderful, wonderful children I've come to meet haven't been able to stay with us. But I just hope that there's a bigger picture somewhere
And we'll find out. Yeah.
And it'll all make sense. Yeah, that's what I think. It'll all be not necessarily worth it, but a relief to know.
Have an understanding.
Yeah, and that it wasn't, like, I keep coming back to, like, I have to keep trying to find meaning in things. And you just want to know that after everything that we've all been through, that it wasn't
The waste.
that it wasn't for nothing. If we had to walk away empty-handed, that there was something that was meant for us. Because I say to other grieving parents who have just lost children that there's a reason why these particular children were entrusted to us as individuals. And I think it's because us as parents and as mothers, we were supposed to be the ones to look after them and guide them through that, and to prove to them how, and give them as much love in life and give them the most wonderful lives that we did. They were supposed to be ours and we were supposed to be theirs. And even though we weren't destined to keep them, I think it's because we were chosen to give them the special lives and make them the special people that they were. And that is kind of how I feel about Morgan. It's very unfair that I didn't get to keep him, but what an impact he left on the world. And I can take a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah. Paula, we have chatted
For 1 hour, 55 minutes.
Oh yeah, my gosh.
We're getting longer and longer. We keep saying,
I was going to say, how are you going to edit that all down?
I don't know. I'll work it out.
I think this video, when she's done it though, that could keep you going. You could like put one little bit every week.
Yeah. So yeah, just send me the whole thing.
You get the whole
and
thing.
I'll upload it in 10 seconds slots, right? It'll keep you going for the next 2 years.
We got picked up by The Guardian, didn't we, as being the podcast of the week a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely independent. We didn't even know that they were doing it, and they picked us up and recommended us as podcast of the week. But the write-up said, what it lacks in professional production, it makes up for in humour and honesty. And you think, oh, I try.
But then I think that authenticness is like, because I often say that I share things authentically. I don't believe in filters and I don't believe in anything like that. And I think it's really important to me that I'm authentic. And if I look like shit, that's just who I am on that day. And
that's all.
I'd much rather people saw me authentically. And then if I do get dressed up for something and I put a TikTok, they're like, wow, you look amazing. I'm like, yeah, it's all right. What happens when you have a shower, isn't it?
I actually look like on two of our videos that I'd had a stroke.
Oh, yeah, wow.
We filmed it from Spain, and I forgot half my equipment, and it was lagging that badly. I was like, and I looked shocking, and I hadn't bothered to wash. I don't think I'd had a wash in a week because just kept jumping in the pool, and I really did. But I thought, don't care. The content is okay. It's not about looking at me.
No, and do you know what though? It's so important to be those authentic people and to be who you are on that day, and not try and kind of fluff it up or make it pretty, because grief isn't like that.
No, it's not.
And I think by doing that and not being authentic, we're only adding to the problem.
Yeah.
Because we're only telling people that they've got to pretty it up and they've got to make it look good when it doesn't. In fact, most of the time, this is what I look like most of the time.
I do
make. Stop putting on makeup for things like this. It's going to be ruined.
I've got makeup on today because I've been in work. That's the only reason, because I've been out in public.
I don't even bother with that for work, to be honest.
No, but I do make you iron. I do make her iron her clothes.
I just choose clothes that don't need ironing, so then she can't shout at me.
Yeah, I often say I don't believe in ironing. Ironing was made by the devil. And quite frankly, my life goal is probably to do away with it.
I don't own an iron.
I do own one, but if I go to the shop and I see, like, if Matt's like, oh, look at this linen shirt, I'm like, no. Because he's got a 54-inch chest, and he's a rugby forward. He's a big guy, and his shirts take a long time to iron, and I ain't doing them because I ain't his mother.
Zachary came home the other day with a pair of linen trousers. He went, look at my trousers, Mum. I went, oh.
No.
He went, don't you like them? I said, oh, I'm not iron. I don't know what to do with them once you've worn them, mate. Like, honestly.
They'll look great once you wear them.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
Very rare I get an iron out. Very, very rare. Much to Matthew's disdain.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Right,
bother.
you're bullying me now. You're ganging up on me, you two. I even iron underwear, so...
You're terrible.
Oh, gosh. No, that sounds like, well, okay, each to their own.
Yeah. Well, I'm going for my Weight Watchers fluff now, so that's my treat for the night.
Oh.
So,
Okay, that sounds exciting.
yeah, it's just sugar-free jelly and Greek yogurt whipped together.
Oh, okay.
And it sets. It's quite nice, actually. Okay.
I think I'm going to have some chicken because I haven't eaten dinner yet.
Oh, right. Well, you go get something to eat. Right, you do the tagline, Bec.
Yeah, so grab yourself a cuppa, find a comfortable spot, and we'll journey through grief together. Thank you so much, Natalie, for today. Really appreciated it. It's been an absolute brilliant episode. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really pleased to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.